Hello, everyone. Welcome to this author chat. I am Benicia Ponder, your book writing and publishing coach. I help you to write, publish, and shine as an inspirational author as you share your messages with the world so that you can make the impact and the income that you truly desire and deserve. Listen, at Inspirational Authors, it's all about letting your light shine. What does that mean? It means that even after you write your book, it's not the end. It means that you go out, you share that message, you heal with your message, you inspire, you nurture, you encourage with your message so that you can actually do the thing that you say you want to do with your book. Now, this author series is all about answering one key question. What's next? You've written your book. It's out there in the world. It's on the Amazon bookshelves. What's next? What do you do now? And I'm so excited because I am bringing to you some authors who are out there doing it. They are out there with their books, sharing them, and getting great results. So today, I am bringing to you someone who is not just an author, she's also become my mentor in this online entrepreneur, online marketing space. She is a pro at distilling those concepts down to something simple. She gives practical, real world advice. I never have to wonder, oh, how am I going to do this? Because she teaches you, she shows you, she guides you. And what I love most about her is that she walks the walk. There are so many people out here who are coaching and speaking and teaching things that they've heard about, that they've read about, that they've seen other people do. But Connie Ragern Green does it. She does it. So, Connie, I'm excited that you are here. Welcome,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you so much, Benicia. You are so super awesome, and your energy is just contagious. I love it so very much.
So we're going to jump right in because I'm excited about this. I learn from you each and every day. As I told you, as I said in the introduction, you guys, Connie walks the walk. So every day, almost every day, I am learning from her via her emails or whether it's during our mentor sessions, some kind of way. Connie is showing up in my life. And that's the kind of impact you want to have. So, Connie, I want you to just introduce yourself to our community, who you are, and a little bit about your author journey.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I am a former classroom teacher. I taught in the inner city of Los Angeles for 20 years. And simultaneously, in my spare time, ha ha ha, teachers don't have any spare time. I kept working in real estate, which I had done before I got my teaching credential. And during that time, I had children from everywhere. Most of my children never had English as the first language. It was very rare, even if they were born in the US. So writing was going to be very difficult for them. Learning to speak a language is one thing, but learning to write, correctly in that language is something else. So that's where I was first helping the kids. And I told them, I said, if you write every day, just a sentence or two or a paragraph, then year round, your writing will improve. And the ones that believed me, their writing improved. And the ones that didn't, they struggled. And during that time, I thought, gee, maybe this really works, what I'm telling the children. If I would write every day, maybe my own writing would improve because I had wanted to be a writer, but I didn't write. Very, very seldom did I write a story of any kind. So fast forward to 2005, 2006, and I wanted to come online. I was ready to resign from teaching and stop doing my real estate business. And I came online and I realized immediately I was going to need to write all kinds of things, articles and blog posts and emails. And I thought, I better practice every single day. So that's how I got started. And I was so embarrassed by that writing in the beginning because I thought, well, people are going to see it. And they're going to say, well, she was a teacher for 20 years. Look at this writing. But I felt like, just like my students all those years, I thought if I don't practice, if I don't start where I am, instead of being upset that I'm not further along, I'll never be further along. And so I wrote every day. I would challenge myself to write every day. And at some point, I thought, I feel like a writer. And I was blogging in the beginning, and that's how I got started. And finally, I blogged my first book. So 3 years later, 2009, I wrote my first book, Huge Profits with a Tiny List: How to Use Relationship Marketing to Increase Your Bottom Line, 50 Ways. And that was my first book. And everything changed for me overnight. Everything changed because I had published that first book, even though it was my blog post copy pasted into a book format.
I love that. I love that because, and this is again, we're answering the question, what's next? But here's the thing that stops so many authors or would-be authors is that, oh, I'm not a born writer. I don't have the writing skills. I don't know how to express myself on paper. And you gave such a great nugget there in that you have to write to get better at writing. It doesn't just happen overnight. If you want to get better at writing, you have to write, even if it's one, like you told your students, one sentence at a time, or as you have done, a blog at a time, a newsletter at a time, a book at a time, right? Because those smaller things become the bigger things. And I love how when you share your story, because I've heard a lot of your story over the years, but the fact that in the beginning you were just writing those 200-word blogs and you were doing that until you got comfortable with doing more. And I just want to put a pin in this for a second because just get your feedback on that and um just elaborate on that. I was trying to think of the right word. Elaborate on that a little more because that is the place. That is the place where so many people stop. And it bleeds over not just with the writing, but also with the marketing and the promotions because if if you struggle in that area because you don't consistently write, then you'll also struggle in the area when it comes time to consistently share. So give me a little bit more about that, about the habit of writing.
Right. It's a habit because, when we think of a writer, it's a writer. It ends with ER. It means one who writes. So we
Right.
can't call ourselves a writer unless we're actually writing. And so many people, they'll say, oh, I just couldn't think of what to write. I didn't email my list this week because I just didn't know what to say. Well, we're doing storytelling. I still, to this day, just now, I shared a story because storytelling, it goes back to the beginning of time. Storytelling is so important for people all over the earth, and it will continue to be because if we don't share those stories verbally first and then in writing, then generations to come, they won't know the truth. They won't know who the people were and what they went through and what they represented and the struggles they had and the achievements that they finally made. So it's so important to do that. And I think every day I'm practicing my writing continually because you never reach that point where you say, well, the writing is just so wonderful. It's as good as it ever is going to be. Maybe I won't write for a while. No, because once you get into the habit of doing something, you want to do it every day because it makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So you all catching this interview have gotten an extra special nugget, right? An extra special piece of inspiration. Just do it. Do it even if you think you are not doing it well at first, because as you grow, as you continue, you get better and better. And again, that leads us into what's after the writing. Connie, you've written multiple books. I believe you're on your 17th right now. Is that the right, do I have the right
28th,
number?
the
Oh,
28th book, I
oh,
just
I am
released the marketing book.
28th. I
I
was
know
so
it
under.
sounds like I'm telling a fib when I say that. But if you go to my author page, there they are, and even some that I don't count. I'm counting like the full length books that I wrote.
Yes, yes, 28. And I will say that these are not pamphlet style books. These are not medium or low content books. I am all about journals and planners and devotionals and all of those, which are quick and easy. But Connie has published 28 plus books that are full length, 30, 40,000 word books that are packed with knowledge and wisdom and systems and strategies and all those good things. So when she says 28 books, she means 28 books. Amazing. All right. So
It amazes me because I know a lot of people. There's a lot of people in my life who knew me, before I came online. And to them, they're always saying, wow, that's so great. I knew you could do it. They cheer me on and everything because it does feel like an accomplishment. Because at this point, I've published well over 5 million words, which feels like a lot. Now, I know people that are doing what I consider professional writing, which is the direction I'm going. It's with film and television writing. These are people that could write in a day what it would take me still a few weeks to write, but it's not a competition and it's not a contest.
Right.
These are people that started their, writing journeys high school age, maybe college age, and I was much older than that. So we have to just appreciate, what we write and keep doing it and sharing those stories and teaching people because I want my books to be like a class, like a master class. You would read, especially this last book, the marketing book. They can go through that book and really get so much of what they need to build a business, online or offline.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so here's another bonus point because Connie has so much wisdom. It's gonna come often throughout this talk. Sh you mentioned that you were starting later. You started in what, 2005, 2006, around there
Yes, yes.
online. Tell the audience about where you were and because you left your teaching career, your real estate career, but you weren't at the beginning of that. You had been in that for 20 plus years, doing something else before you jumped into online and then a couple of more years before you started writing. Um, like what gave you the courage to do that even at what some people would call an advanced age or an older season in your life? And and listen, because now like I'm in my 40s right now, and I'm like, what I consider advanced age is like 80 now, as opposed, so but you were 50, around 50 or so when you decided to
Yes.
make that change. Tell us about what sparked that.
Well, why I came online, why I wanted to leave teaching and come online, you mean?
Well, not only that, but what gave you the courage to do that after you'd already built that career and you were at a like I consider, okay, if I'm 50, it's my time to wind down. It's my time to maybe retire, not create a whole new empire,
Well,
right?
I think, yeah, looking back to it, I was disillusioned with the school system. I felt that so much was wrong with the way they were teaching the students and that they weren't really serving them. And as a teacher, I didn't have a whole lot of say so over that. And finally, we had to teach to the test, which every district will tell you, oh, we would never do that. But that's what we were doing the last several years. And I thought, I don't want to be here any longer. And I have to leave. The students have to be here, but I'm an adult. I really need to move on. Plus, I'd had illness and injury. I'm a 4-time cancer survivor. Plus, I had fallen at work about 2 years before I left. I had fallen and had knee and shoulder surgery within a few months. So I was on workers' comp for about 6 months. And that was really hard because I didn't have any money. And that was really a tough thing. And I thought, I need more control over my life situation. Plus, my mom was still alive and she was getting about 600 a month Social Security, and I was helping her every month. And I thought I need to help her in a bigger way as she gets older. So I was, talking about like having the courage. I don't know if it was the courage, but I felt like I had to do this. I had to make a change. So I started asking people if they knew anybody, people I knew. I said, and not teachers or people in real estate, people I knew kind of in my regular day to day life. Did you know anybody that had left a career and changed, did something completely different, and they're doing it really well, and they're making money, and they're happy, and all that? And the people I knew 2 couples that had done this. They had gone from the corporate world to doing other things. So that gave me a little courage. I thought, well, I think it's possible. So I started going to conferences. There were things like sometimes on a Friday night or a Saturday night, I would drive into Los Angeles and I would go to a seminar, and it was usually free, and they would even give you refreshments. And I would go there and they were telling people how they could start different businesses. They had all these things. Well, one time there was one, they were talking about having businesses online. I didn't even know that. And I was an early adopter to the World Wide Web and to the internet and in the classrooms. I was always the computer person and everything. I didn't know, other than big companies and corporations, I didn't know that somebody like you and me, that we could start a business online and actually make money for it from it. And I thought, I want to see what that's like. And I started to pursue it. And I decided, I started making my 1 year plan. How am I going to be able to resign at the June 30th of the following year and give away my real estate clients to people that were already doing it full time, which I was never doing. And during that year, that's when I found out there were so many things. But yet the bright light did not go on until I was actually resigned from teaching and given away all my real estate clients and moved to a new community about 30 miles north. I didn't know that I was going to have to write every day. And finally, I was at my desk in the new house in an office area, and I thought, okay, the writing is going to be a big piece of this. I have to now do what I've told my students for 20 years. I have to write every day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. So I'm sitting here taking mental notes and I'm just like, okay, number one lesson from just that brief interlude. Number one, you don't have to stay where you are. If you notice that you are not satisfied in an area, make a change. And then it doesn't matter whether you are the first in the industry or got in at the very beginning. Even, you weren't at the very, very, very beginning, but you were early on in online marketing, I'm sure, but it wasn't at the very beginning. There were other people doing what you wanted to do, but you didn't let the fact that you weren't the first stop you. And and you had a plan. You said, I mean, so listen, as you all are listening to this interview, this dialogue, I really want you to take notes and understand the lessons that are being shared in Connie's author journey, because there are lots and lots and lots of lessons here. A lot of times I meet aspiring authors who say, oh, my topic is a topic that other people have written about. Oh, I am not a born writer. Oh, I don't have the time. All these things. But in that brief 5 minutes that Connie was just talking about her journey, that part of her journey, there are busters to all of those excuses you have. You don't have to be the first. You have your own insight and intelligence and wisdom and story to add. You can change. You can have a plan and implement that plan. So, okay, I feel like this is a masterclass. This is a deep dive into the author's journey because it is so nuanced with being able not only to make powerful decisions, but to having the mindset that you can grow, having that growth mindset that you don't have to stay stuck where you are. So even as you are on your author journey right now, it's important that you keep going, keep growing, keep doing. So
Yes.
Connie, okay, I get
Here, you know
excited
what though?
about these
You know what,
things.
Benicia? I want to tell you about writing that first book. Is that all right?
Yes, yeah, go right
Okay,
ahead. Yes.
so I had been online about 2 years, and the mentor I had at the time, Armin Morin, and he's known around the world. I had gone into that program, and he said everybody has to have a book, and I thought he meant everybody else. I didn't think I was part of everybody. So if you know the name Jeanette Cates, it's Dr. Jeanette Cates, and she used to be known as the technology tamer. We're still very good friends. She was in the group, and later that day, I said, "Boy, Jeanette, I would sure love to write a book." And she said, "Well, why don't you? You got to do it." And I said, "Well, I couldn't afford to take the time off from my work on the internet to write the book. That could take a few months." And she said, "Why in the world would you take time off from your business to write a book?" And I said, "Well, how else do you do it?" And she said, "Well, you make an outline and then you write for an hour a day." And she went back to what she was doing. And I thought about it. And that's what I did. I didn't take time off from anything. It took about 4 months to write the book, which my books still take me about that long. And I wrote for an hour a day. And I decided to write a blog post about everything I was going to put in the book and then use those blog posts. And that was the magic. So somebody telling me something that was so simple, because later on, when I told her about that, she said, "Oh, well, I didn't think that was, such brilliant advice. I just thought it made sense. It was common sense, which
Yes,
isn't so common, I guess, right?" But
you're
when
right.
she laid it out that way, that, well, yeah, you just decide what you're going to write about and you write for an hour every day. Everything came together in my thinking.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. I want to go forward into shining, right? That's the second. You've written a book, you've gotten it written. Now it's time for you to share it. And not just share like buy my book, buy my book. Of course that's important, but also to be able to consistently make an income from your books. So tell us about that. What led you, because you've 28 books in, right? You are making a considerable income from the book sales each month. But what about that first part, the first book, moving into being able to monetize your books?
Well, I had heard somewhere, and I don't recall where I heard it, but I've heard it since, that we make more money by teaching and explaining our books than by selling the books. And I thought, well, let me see how that's going to work. So when I was the first book, I wanted to start teaching it to people, Huge Profits with a Tiny List. I just started sharing what I was doing in great detail. So for every blog post that back then was probably 300 words or so, I would go into great detail of what I meant. So I would say one way to increase your bottom line is with teleseminars. You can do an audio recording, you can do an interview like you're doing here with me. You can just start talking all kinds of things. And I did that and I started talking about everything that was in the book. So people had a choice. They could spend whatever the book is, 10 or $12 for the book, or they could come into a class with me so I could explain everything. And I sold that for $97. And I kept talking about it. Then I started a podcast and I kept talking more. And then at the end of a year, I sold the recordings that I had talked about. I sold that as a product. So I was sharing. So people had the choice, and many people did both or did everything. They would buy the book, and people a lot of times they don't read the book, or they read a little in the beginning, a little at the end. They put it on the shelf and they feel like they're happy they have the book, but it didn't really change their life. But I had people that had the book, they had my course that they had come into, and they could listen to those replays later on. They could listen to the podcast. And then in my emails, I began to share because I pretty much pull back the curtain. There's very little that I don't share. I have some niche sites I do things with. I don't share that, but that's like 5% or less of my business. So the idea is you want to teach people, because whatever you wrote the book about, that really is where you're going to shine because you're an expert on that topic, whatever it is. I wrote a book on intermittent fasting about 3 years ago now because I had been doing it. I'd been doing it for over a year when I wrote the book. So the idea is write the book about something that you know very, very well, and then find as many ways as possible to spoon feed it to the people that want it and you feel maybe need it.
Yes.
Because I have people, huge profits with a tiny list. They said they didn't email their list because they don't have enough people on their list. I said, well, what number do you need? When you have 100, will you start writing an email then? When you have 500, what's the magic number? We don't know what number we are in anybody's list. And
Right.
finally, they understand that you can make huge profits with a tiny list. Just start sharing your best self with people.
Yes, 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 absolutely. And I love that tip because that's one of the things that I encourage inspirational authors to do all the time. Teach your message. It's not just the book, it's the message that's in the book. And the marketing is you sharing that message, you teaching that message. which allows you to reach more people. There are a lot of people who pick up your book, like you said, and won't read the whole book, but they will sit in the class with you, or they'll turn it to your, they'll hear it, they'll listen to it, and then they'll be like, oh, I have that book, and they'll go back and maybe they'll pick it up and read a little bit of it. But the fact is, you teaching that. One of my earliest mentors when I was writing my very first book said, don't be afraid to put it all in your book. Like, put it all in there. Don't be afraid, oh, I have to hide some things. No, because you're going to take that and you're going to teach it and you're going to share it and you're going to continue. And there are going to be people who take your book and do everything you say with it. That's going to be a small percentage. But then there are going to be those people who take your book and they're still going to have questions, even after you've laid everything out. That's where you come in, where you teach. And I believe, I think on our mentoring call, last week or one of our recent ones, you were talking about being able to have people to hear your voice and have people to not just write it, but it'll also let them hear you say it. So I think that goes in line with what you're talking about, teaching what your book to allow it to really spread its wings and be able to reach more people.
Right, because we all learn in different ways. My very favorite way to learn is to have the written document, whatever that looks like, and then also the audio. So I listen and I follow along. And sometimes I have my finger going under the words on the
Mm-hmm.
sentence in the book or whatever the PDF is, something like that. So that's the way I like to learn. I do videos because people like to learn from that. And in terms of sharing, I don't believe that you can ever share too much because I'm going to assume most of us haven't, done something horrible that we wouldn't want known. But I shared so much in one of my books, and it's a book of essays. It's essays at the intersection of hope and synchronicity. I shared so much about, especially growing up and my earlier life before I went to college or anything like that. That is now a banned book. I'm so proud. I have written a book that is now
Wow.
banned in several states in the United States. And
Okay.
why? Because I told some stories about things I had experienced, and it was racism, it was a whole lot of things that I was very proud to share my experience and how
Mhm.
I reacted and how I interacted with people. And I wouldn't take back that part of that book for anything because those stories needed to be out there. And the fact that a group of people read that book and said, "Oh no, no, she has opinions about all these things," you know, that's up to them, not up to me. But local bookstores here in California, they love having a banned book on their shelf. They're very proud of that. So I will
Uh,
continue to share in a way that I feel enriches people's experience, enlightens them, and tells them who I am a whole lot more.
I love
I'm not
it.
going to
I love it.
sugarcoat everything.
Yes, I love it because it also goes to the fact that you're not for everyone. And there are going to be some people who don't agree or don't understand or just don't get it.
Yeah,
But that's not who you're catering to. You did not censor yourself because you're like, oh my gosh, what if somebody bans this book one day? Your mission, your goal was to share and to really share your heart, reach those people who are going to be drawn to the book, but not, you didn't write to avoid hurting somebody's feelings. You wrote to
yeah.
connect, right? So I think that's a good thing to remember, both in writing and in marketing and promotion. Like, you are reaching, though, you're trying to connect. You're not trying to avoid, making somebody mad, because honestly, good things do create emotions, whether it's anger or frustration. Or, some of the best movies I watch or the books I read, I get angry at the characters because, I'm really in there. Right. But that's what I think good writing and good books do. They cause emotions. They allow you to either love them or hate them, right? So, but your
Yes.
job was to talk to the people that you wanted to love them, not to avoid the people, because the people who are going to hate them are going to hate it, right? But really wanting to connect. So I love that. I really do.
Because I remember on Amazon early on, it was like my third or fourth book. Because after I wrote the first one, I thought, well, I want to keep going. Then let me go ahead and do some more books. And I was complaining to Joe Vitale, if people know who he is. I was complaining. I I said, I'm getting some bad reviews. People are saying really mean things about this one book. And he said, you've arrived. And so
Yes.
I stopped talking because what he meant was when people are at that point where they're reading your book and then they're writing something because they're upset about something, how you shared it or something, that means you're being noticed. And that's a good thing. As long as you know everything you're doing comes from your heart and that it comes with love, that's how you're delivering your information, then let those haters have their say because they'll bring you, more people that will not feel that way at all.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I feel like we could talk for hours. But I will not because um I do want to value our audience's time, your time. And I just want to wrap up with some words of advice from you. What would you say to someone who has a book that they've written and they're not seeing the traction with it? They're not making sales. They're not seeing um, elevated authority, credibility, all those things we say books can bring you. They're seeing none of that. What's your advice to them?
All right, so it doesn't matter when you wrote the book because I could use any of my books as an example. So just say that, and this actually happened. I had a book that it really wasn't selling very much, and I couldn't figure out why. And it's called Living the Mentored Life. And I went back and I took a look at it, and I thought I haven't positioned it well on Amazon and with booksellers and everything like that. So Denise Wakeman, who was an early mentor of mine, she had written the foreword to that book, and I was very proud of it. So I started talking about her in relation to the book, and people they'd say, "Oh, so Denise Wakeman wrote the foreword? Well, then she must know Connie." So it was like by association. And when I added it to my keywords, and that's something you can always do if your books are on Amazon, go in and review your listing in KDP and look through those keywords because I think they give us 8. You want every space filled up, and I added Denise Wakeman as a keyword phrase. And almost overnight, or it felt like that to me, then the book sales increased. And I thought every time I offer it for free, and you want to join Kindle Select, there's no reason not to, because I don't fulfill my own books. So I don't
Right.
have my books for sale on a website anywhere. So 5 days out of every 90 days, as long as you're in Kindle Select, and you can always opt out of that after a 90-day period, but I never have, then make sure that you're writing about the book in a way that really will be helpful. Don't just say, well, this is my book, Living the Mentored Life, it's free today, please download it. That's not enough. You have to be excited as you were the day it was originally published. And what can you share? Look through your own books. Hopefully you have physical copies of your own books. Look through there and see what you shared, what you talked about. And you can do this with your books. You can do it with anybody else's books. Right now, I'm heavily promoting James Clear and his Atomic Habits. So I look through his book. I'll just randomly go to a chapter. I'll get something that he said and talked about it. That's what I talk about when I'm promoting the book. Did you know that James Clear says this?
Mhm.
So you want to use those other resources that you have and take a look at the books. Like where were you in your life when you wrote the book? Like this latest book I wrote about marketing, I was at the point where I thought, I think I'm finally ready to teach marketing, where I really haven't done that exclusively. I've always felt like there are other people that are more experienced and, smarter and cuter. Well, maybe not cuter. I don't know who's cuter than you and
Not
me,
cuter.
right? But finally, I put that out there. But then I brought in 3 contributing authors, and that was very good. But now I'm telling my story of how I learned about marketing, and that's selling more books. So
Yeah.
remember where you were when you wrote a book, and then share with people what you've learned since you wrote the book. But you want to talk about your books every day, and get a link for your Amazon author page. So I send people to ConnieRagernGreenBooks.com every day.
Yes, yes, I love it. Every day. That's the
Every
key.
day.
Every day, making it a habit of sharing. And I do want to mention because um your 11th, I think it was your 11th book. I'm not sure. I think it was around there. Um but write, publish, prosper, writing prolifically, publishing globally, prospering eternally. I think I got it. I
Yes,
think I got
yes,
it.
I
Yes,
love it.
yes, yes.
I love it.
But it's a phenomenal book, and I
Thank
am
you.
recommending that. I am going to share that with you all in the show notes to this, because that's what our community is all about: writing, publishing, prospering. I like to call it shining. Prospering is a beautiful word too. Um, but it's all about making sure that it's not just the writing is not the end of the road. It's not. It's the first step on this journey. To share your message and really get it out there is so important. And I've read this book. Connie is, amazing. Again, it's like a master class, like she said, in this. And although I teach this and I do this, I love learning. I love it. And this book is something that will help you on your journey. So, write, publish, prosper. The link is going to be in our show notes. Check it
And you know
out.
what I did with this book? When
Tell
I
me.
when I first had this book, it was ready to be published, so I started a class. I brought people into a class. I charged several $100s for it. I told them the book was going to be published while they were in this class with me for 8 weeks or so. I sent everybody a copy, no matter where they lived in the world. And that can be expensive if they
Yeah.
live outside of the 48 states in the US. I sent everybody a copy. And then a few months later, I did a live event, and that was the title, Write, Publish, Prosper. So
Mm,
I challenge everyone watching and listening to Benicia and I here. I challenge you to do something in your community, because the libraries, the bookstores, they want you to be there. They want you to talk about your book. They will give you the space to do it. You order books so that way they can earn some money from them, the people that buy the books while they come to hear you. I challenge you to do it. It will be the most scary thing you ever agree to do. And the minute that you start talking about your book and you have friends and family in the audience, maybe you get 10 people that first time, and 8 of them are people related to you or good friends with you. That's okay. And you start talking about it, you will feel your life change in that moment. And it will be very powerful.
yes. Talk about your book. Talk about it and be excited about it. Be proud to share it. Thank you so much, Connie. Thank you. This has been, I get giddy around these conversations because I love it. I know that someone listening to this or watching this is going to really, um, it's going to change somebody's life, somebody's perspective, because it's already given, I have so many like bombs, like inspiration, and it's so amazing. And it's not necessarily something that's hard, but it does require action. It does require effort. So as we wrap up today, I'd love for you to give a final few words, Connie, on just some motivation to keep going, and then also share about where they we can all find more information about you.
All right. Well, first of all, Benicia, I want to thank you for what you're doing, because helping other people to get their message out to the world, that is big. It's so, so important. We really have to share who we are and what we stand for, because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. So with the writing, for many people, it probably will be as difficult for you as it was for me to start writing. But once you start writing, you will feel like you have that power in your pen if you're writing by pen. And I recommend doing some writing by hand every day. I do some copy work every morning by hand, and then I'm on the computer. I still type with two index fingers. I'm not a touch typist. So I really encourage you to sit down and write and I'll tell you what, I have an elderly family member. He's 78. He's writing about his life when he grew up in Sweden all those years ago, and he's remembering all these people and places and everything, and he feels very empowered. And now other relatives, younger relatives of his, they can't wait to see the book that he's going to publish, because I told him we'll publish it. So I want you to think about what you can write about whatever you know, write about what's important to you, write about what's going on in the world, or perhaps just in your corner of the world. This will make a big difference. And follow Benicia, work with her, let her help you get published and get your book out there. because that means everything. When you have someone else that believes in you and not just a friend or family member, but someone who's in that space, you're in the author space, the inspirational author space. And all of our writing is intended to inspire people. We want people to know that they can do anything, they can have anything. So, and the best place to find me is ConnieRagernGreen.com. Ragen is Ragen. It's a misspelling of King Lear's daughter. If anybody knows Shakespeare, I'm not really a Shakespeare expert at all. Green like the color, no E on the end. ConnieRagernGreen.com. If you're on Twitter, that's now X, I'm Connie Green there. And I would love to, hear a tweet from you or something. And I know Benicia will tell me if anybody is sending messages through her to me. But the idea is that we want you to write. The writing is important. And think about it every single day. And just with your blog posts right now, if you're blogging, share those posts every single day. Put them on social media, put them in the emails that you're sending out. Put something in a signature line at the bottom of your personal email where people will see, they'll say, oh, this person wrote a book. Because I bet there are people in your life, if you've already published, that don't know that you're a published author. Do that. And even if that feels scary, it won't feel scary very long, because finally people will come up to you. They'll say, are you the one who wrote the book? And you'll say, yes, that was me. And I'm working on another book right now. That's what you'll say to them. So I want you to be strong and just know that, this work is so, so special and so, so important. And having someone to lead you like Benicia, that's a true gift.
Thank you so much, Connie. Thank you for being here. And for all of those of you who have joined us during this chat, I'm grateful that you have joined us, and I encourage you to take Connie's words to heart. Go back and listen to the stories again and again. This might be one of your favorite episodes in our series, because there's so many nuggets that were dropped through the stories that Connie told about her own journey, as well as the practical tips. The practical tips. She didn't talk about a whole lot of elaborate stuff, just the practical everyday tips, showing up and sharing your message, sharing your book every day. That's important. So I encourage you, as a part of the inspirational authors community, to continue to write, continue to publish, continue to shine, because remember, you are indeed the light of the world, and it's time for you to let your light shine. Bye bye.
Okay.